We're going to begin with breaking news. In the last few minutes, the names of 3 of the Israeli captives who will be exchanged for Palestinian prisoners on Saturday have been released. Now, in a moment, we're going to speak to Tariq Abu Zoum, who's in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. First, let's go to Nour Odeh, who's reporting from Amman because the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority has banned Aljazeera from reporting from Israel and the occupied West Bank. Nour, let's start with what we know about these 3.
So the military wing of Hamas issued a statement with the names of the 3 Israeli captives that will be released tomorrow, Saturday, from Gaza. They are Eli Sharabi, Levy, who holds a dual Israeli and German citizenship, and Ohad Ben Ami. Now, these names, according to Israeli reports, are what Israel was expecting. And in exchange for that, we are waiting to see the list of Palestinian captives and detainees who will be released. We're expecting several categories to be included in this batch, including at least 110 Palestinians who were taken from Gaza since the war began.
Nour, I would imagine, of course, this is a relief not only for the families of the Israeli captives, but also, of course, for Palestinians who've been fearing that this ceasefire may crumble.
Absolutely. I think the families of the Palestinian detainees, the Palestinians who've been disappeared from Gaza, and nobody knows their fate. There is no access to any kind of information about them. And of course, the families of Israeli captives, all of those families are holding on to hope and want this ceasefire to last as long as possible. And so they were waiting really on pins and needles to see this list released. And now the Palestinian families will be waiting to see who of their sons will be released. We have to remember thousands have disappeared from Gaza, Rob, since October 7. The information about them is very scarce. We know that they're held in very, very difficult conditions. Human rights organizations and the UN have documented severe human rights abuses, including starvation and sexual abuse, but we don't know how many are in Israeli detention. And so the more Palestinians are released who were taken from Gaza, the more information organizations can gather about who remains behind.
While we're waiting for that list of Palestinian prisoners who are going to be released, just remind us of what this process usually involves when there is a transfer of the Israeli captives in exchange for those Palestinian prisoners who are released.
Well, if we're going to, use the pattern of the past exchanges, this is what we expect to happen. In the morning, the military wing of Hamas will release the Israeli captives from undisclosed locations as of yet in the Gaza Strip. They will be received by the delegation from the International Committee of the Red Cross, who will deliver them to the Israeli army within Israel proper, after which they will undergo medical examinations and be debriefed and then unite or reunite with their families. Once that process concludes, then the process of Palestinian prisoners released or exiled from the occupied West Bank will begin. Families will gather, most likely in Ramallah, to receive those who will be released to the occupied West Bank. And in Gaza, most likely they will be gathering in southern Gaza to receive the Palestinians from Gaza who were taken after October the 7th. They will by then know their names, and usually they're taken straight to hospital because, as we've seen in the past, they're usually in very dire conditions and they would require medical attention. But Saturday is a highly charged day, very emotional for all involved, because it is, a moment that families have waited for many, many years. And among those who will be released from the Palestinian side are people who've been sentenced to either long sentences or life sentences. These are Palestinians who had no hope of reuniting with their family, who have not touched their children and their family members in many, many years since they've been detained. So this will be a very, very emotional day for all involved.
No, there were growing concerns about whether or not this ceasefire is going to hold more broadly, but certainly just in the last few hours, because we were expecting this list of Israeli captives to be released 3 or 4 hours ago. But at the same time, we've been reporting, of course, that there have been allegations of violations of the ceasefire carried out by Israel, and that's just added to the kind of pressure that has been on the ceasefire and the negotiators. Just briefly, bring us up to speed with what those allegations of violations have been.
Well, mainly, really, it is to do with the humanitarian protocol, as Hamas refers to it, which is the commitment by Israel in the ceasefire agreement, Rob, that it would allow the entry of tents, of caravans, of medical equipment, of heavy equipment needed to remove the rubble of the more than 90% of homes that it has destroyed over the past 16 months in Gaza. That pledge, that promise has not been fulfilled, and the amount of assistance that is entering is below the amount that was promised. The number of Palestinians who are injured, who were supposed to be allowed to leave Gaza, is also has also not been met. So this translates into increasingly difficult conditions for Palestinians wanting to return to Gaza City in northern Gaza and to start to rebuild their lives. More than 500,000 made it to Gaza and northern Gaza, but there's no running water. There isn't enough medicine. There aren't enough tents. There is no way to remove the rubble, to retrieve the bodies of loved ones, thousands of them in northern Gaza and Gaza City who remain trapped under tons of debris. And Hamas has signaled that it is very frustrated with what it views as these violations, and it has also signaled that it is very, very weary of what Trump has proposed in terms of dispossessing Palestinians from Gaza and taking over the enclave. And it has warned that that kind of rhetoric, that kind of policy formulation could affect negotiations moving forward. And we have to remember that negotiations on phase 2 of the ceasefire agreement, which would see the withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip, the end of the war, if you will, they have to start in earnest in Qatar. And Israel has only sent a low-level delegation to start those negotiations. They're not empowered yet to make any decisions. And so this precarious nature of the ceasefire persists, and that's why families want to see more and more of those Saturdays come where the captives are released, but also the hundreds of Palestinian detainees and disappeared are released, because they know that this could end at any moment.
Nour, for now, thank you very much indeed. That's Nour Odeh talking to us there from Amman.